angles. Everywhere, every challenge, every hero, every change. Let's start the conversation on the Daily Debate. I'm Tagreed Hussein on the Debate Thursdays, bringing you news analysis you want to watch. Hello and welcome to the Daily Debate Live Thursdays with Tagreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight, a very special edition. And as His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi inspected on Thursday a number of projects being held at the new administrative capital, we'll be talking more about the first smart university at the new administrative capital, the features of a smart university, what is a smart university, and lessons taught from smart universities all over the world. What also is a smart campus? How about smart infrastructure? So hopefully everything that is smart, well, it is something transformational. How can we make our traditional universities smart today? Is it necessary? Is it a luxury? Or is it necessary in order to cope with the transformation that is happening in education worldwide today? So smart universities isn't a luxury, according to our dear guest and professor tonight. I have all the honor and pleasure of having with me Professor Dr. Ahmad Abdel Tawwab Sharaf Eldin, Professor of Linguistics at Munufiyya University, and he was the one who wrote this beautiful article about going smart, but this time with universities, smart universities. Professor, thank you so much for
Thank you, Tagreed, for having me today on your show. It has been always a pleasure to talk to you, especially about such special topics.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharaf Eldin, and we'll talk smart universities preparing cadres today in the labor market. But first of all, let's read together the headline. The President inspected on Thursday a number of projects being held at the new administrative capital. Presidential spokesman, Excellency Ambassador Bassam Radi, said that the President's tour included a cathedral, a mosque, sports city, the National Council of the Families of Martyrs in Injad, and also a new city east of Al-Shuruq city. The head of state also inspected projects of developing Cairo Ismailia Road and also Cairo Bilbais Road, this in addition to Suez Road and Al-Mushir Tantawi access. Ambassador Radi said that the President's tour comes within the framework of his follow-up of the underway projects, especially the mega ones, developing the road grids and also the bridges. So, Professor Sharaf Eldin, a very important visit by the President, and as we notice, it is not the first time that His Excellency would tour the new administrative capital.
That is very true. As a matter of fact, today we are talking about something that is quite a bit interesting, very important. That is smart universities. And let me just make that in a broader term, that is smart education. We know very well what does it mean to say education. But the interesting part here that we have today, it's something that's called smart education and smart university. But before coming here, I have to tell you that I was reviewing a number of statistics regarding the education process in our country. We have today about 22 million students who are being educated in the educational institutions in Egypt. We have something like 2 to 3 professors and teachers, 2 or 3 employers working in the field of education as well. We are talking about from 25 to 30% of Egypt's population working and being educated in this field. What does that mean? It means that this is a strategic for the development process for our community. Now, we are talking in our current times about smart cities, smart towns. smart mobiles,
Yes.
smart roads, smart buildings, and today we have a smart education. Just to make it simple to our viewers, smart education means to connect every single aspect related to education to the online systems, electronic ways, digitalization. And if you just remember, a few weeks ago, we were talking during the Youth Forum about the concept of digitalization and how important it is. And we see the determination of the government to change everything into digitalized system. Why? Because this is what the world today is moving forward. And Egypt is just trying to catch up the whole thing here. If we talk about smart education, then we are talking about something that could be more objective, more dynamic, more involving. This is the point. This is the bottom line. I stick to my guns and keep on saying that the best way here to achieve any kind of progress is just to be sticking to technological devices. And I'm sure you would say that some people are not probably aware about what you're talking about. Yes, but it's our huge responsibility to spread the awareness and to make people more oriented towards what's going on. Because there is something positive happening on the ground, but people need to know what's going on there. So we were talking about, when I wrote my article about smart university towards better education, I was referring to the first smart university that has been inaugurated in the administrative capital a few weeks ago. It's a huge step. It's a very big leap towards the development of education.
Yes.
Let me just give you one example here for how important it is. Now, if you are talking about smart university, for you as a professor, you don't have to go to the classroom to give lectures. You can just deliver your lecture from your place, from your room, from your office.
Yes.
And also at the same time, your students don't have to go to the classroom in the same way. And because we have the technological ways that can help all the elements and all the individuals involved in the education to achieve our target.
Some would come up and say that the bond is always needed between the student and his professor. I mean, I need to see my professor also flesh and blood and communicate. So if we're going to go smart, where are we going to find this area and this bond?
Well, I think that there is no contradiction between both, because at the same time you can also see your student. That doesn't mean that you would hide yourself from your students, but we are making all the things to be accessible, to be faster, to save time and effort. So let me just give you one technique that can be used in the smart education. Few days ago, I read an important headline that says that the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Khalid Abdel Ghaffar, he just issued a decision to apply the application of electronic marking for examinations across the board, across the educational institutions in Egypt, including universities, colleges, and even schools. So what does that mean? Again, electronic marking. It means that saving time and efforts, and it means also to make the final results for the students to be fair, to be just, and at the same time to face another phenomenon that we witnessed recently nowadays, that is cheating. So if you use electronic ways, in this way you achieve a high level of transparency, you increase the quality of education, you save your time and your efforts, and you make your job done in the optimal way. This is what we are looking for, and that's why I do salute the decision by the Minister of Higher Education for applying the electronic marking, because I'm a professor, as you know, and I teach at Monofia University. And could you imagine, for example, for one class that I have more than 300 to 400 students, how long will it take? It takes sometimes days from me just to wrap up the whole task. So by using electronic ways here in this way, you're going to make it faster, it's easier, it's more flexible, and the result at the end will be very objective, very accurate. We were hearing before about students who were submitting complaints that they face something like unjust regarding the markings. That wouldn't happen with electronic ways. I'm just telling you one technique that could be used when it comes to the smart technology in education.
Yes, I guess, Professor, key in what you said also is the issue of awareness, spreading awareness. People should know the pros and also should know the cons. And it is transformational, whether we like it or not, it will happen because everybody is going smart. Educational edifices throughout the whole world today are going smart.
The problem here, Tagreed, is that, I mean, if you just isolate yourself and if you just say, no, I don't care about that, I don't care about what's going on in the world, then you will see yourself at the end alone, standing alone in an area that nobody will give any attention to you. The point here, the bottom line is, the whole world today is moving towards technology and how to apply that, and you have no other options but just to speed up the process, and that's why it was a very good decision to have something like Smart University, the first one in Egypt, and we are expected to have from 5 to 10 universities in the upcoming 2 years. It is something that is positive. Whether you agree or disagree about that, but at the end, it's something that must happen. Remember, for example, if you talk about technology, and here we have the internet, some people say, yes, internet has positives and negatives. But at the end, that there is something that can help students and can help professors.
Yes.
Let me just give you one more example, and this is another huge accomplishment that happened nowadays. The Bank of Knowledge created by the Minister of Education. And again, I do salute the Minister of Education, Dr. Tariq Shawki, for that. It's a fantastic, it's a fascinating invention that we have. And look to the integration that Egypt is trying to make now. Just a few days ago, I heard that the Bank of Knowledge from Egypt is going to make partnership with the Electronic Library in Saudi Arabia and another partnership with the Library of Dubai, and all of them will be closely connected online. This is another huge decision.
Yes, and it brings people together as well.
Can you see
so
that?
It's not only bringing more of the features of foreign policy, but also people together.
Right.
Talking about going smart, what does it take for a smart university to happen? What are the features of that smart university?
Well, if we talk about the smart university here, we are talking about smart campus. So it's unusual. I mean, people are not aware about that.
In what way is it unusual?
Well, number one, you're going to have super speed for the internet in every single part on campus. This is number one. And number two, you're going to have smart screens, smart monitors. Everything is closely connected online. There is the digitalization process on campus, and it means that even the syllabi, the syllabus, the materials, everything can be found online. You can find that sense of interaction between the professors and the students. So if the students need anything, and instead of using Facebook page of the professor, I can go to the page of the university and I can do everything possible. There is something more important here that probably most people are not aware about.
Yeah.
Smart education turns education to be a sense of enjoyment. And this is very, very critical point. When I was in the United States, and you know that I was teaching in the US for a while, when I was asking my students about how do you experience, how do you see your class, they were saying, all right, professor, we enjoyed the class. It was a sense of enjoyment and entertainment. But here when I ask people sometimes, I feel that it is something like a heavy burden on some people. There is something that
when we are going to go smart, the situation is going to be different.
So we are moving on the right path. Whether some people agree or disagree with that, but we have to move forward because this is the only option.
The only option is to move forward and also to take this transformation serious. And we have with us Ms. Nada Muhammad online, and she's going to talk to her about her vision. Nada, good day to you, and we're talking about Smart University, the first Smart University at the new administrative capital. From your own point of view, how far is going smart an addition? Nada.
Evening, Mrs. Tagreed. I'm happy. I'm really happy to be with you on the program. I think smart education is something. It's a great idea. It's something. It's as an idea. It was applied on the international level, and mostly it's applied in Egypt. I think in the international schools and universities. And in my point of view, when we're speaking about smart education, we don't speak about universities only. We are speaking about the people for the university in schools and universities too, because we must get students habitant to this type of education. So when we're dealing with smart education, we're dealing with online exams. We're dealing with online, as Dr. Ahmed said, the sort of online marking. We're dealing with a teacher online. It's not a must for me to see my teacher. I'll be online with my teacher most of the time. I'm capable of reaching him anytime. A lot of things. We're dealing with how to help the students, how to either in the university level or the level before that, to be creative, to be able to introduce something else. Maybe he can add something to a syllabus which I can see as a professor or institutor in the education process. So I think the youth, as we see now, have a great deal to do with. They have a lot to give. So this is it. They have a role in the education, and they must have a role in placing their sign in the syllabus placed as a modern education. And we must teach them how to be both. How to achieve both accessibility, speed, and being punctuate at the same time, speed and accuracy, which we all need now, especially that we don't have time. We have to cope up with the globalization process.
Thank you so much, Neda. And what you're saying is really valuable concerning bringing out the creative sense of the story and also accessibility.
That's very true. So it actually, as a matter of fact, there is another aspect when it comes to the education, smart education. It increases the level of creativity for the people, for the students, and this is what we really need. Now, we are talking about, there is an issue in our society today, and it's very important to talk about that, because education is the only way to move forward to build this country. And if we remember, historically speaking, if we remember the ruler, Muhammad Ali, 2 centuries ago when he built Egypt, the first thing he did is he started with education. So what did he do? He sent Egyptian students to France to be educated, and coming back again and started, and we remember at that time that the school of Elson was built by someone, by its founder, Rafaa. So he was a student who was educated in France. This is, and if you just have a deep look at the situation, you can just understand how did that happen. It happened, first of all, by education. Back again to our point, because we were talking about creativity, and I would like to connect that with competitiveness as well. Look today to the situation globally. Look to a country like South Korea. And I would like to give 3 examples: South Korea, Singapore, United States. So for these countries, even the US, 2 decades ago or 3 decades ago, during the 80s of the last century, there was a published report released. It was entitled, as far as I remember, A Nation at Risk. And they were talking about that they had at that time certain defects in their education. We do not have any problem to learn from other experiences. We are open and applicable, and this is what Egypt is trying to do nowadays. They are bringing sometimes the Japanese schools, different international universities, because we are open to different cultures, and we are saying to the whole world that we are ready to learn from your experiences.
Definitely, very important, and lessons taught are also important from different countries from all over the world. We're talking about a first smart university at the new administrative capital. A short break, and we'll be back.
تجربة مميزة. احنا سعداء بافتتاح المدارس دي، اتعملت في زمن قياسي الحقيقة لخدمة، حضرتك عارف سوق التعليم المصري بيخدم أعداد كبيرة جدا، حوالي 22 مليون من ولادنا ليهم احتياجات مختلفة، وأولياء الأمور ليهم تطلعات مختلفة في مستقبل ولادهم. فبنحاول نعطي فرص لكل هذه الأذواق وكل هذه الاحتياجات. مدارس هي شراكة بين الدولة ممثلة في وزارة التربية والتعليم وبين رابطة المدارس الخاصة والدولية. هم بيحاولوا يعملوا عمل مجتمعي يساهموا بخبراتهم في الإدارة، بخبراتهم في الاختيار وتدريب المعلمين وتنظيم مدارس عالية الجودة. وحققنا الشراكة دي، طلعت منتج بجودة عالمية بأسعار نعتقد أنها مناسبة جدا لما يعني بياخدوه الولاد في المدارس.
So, Professor, we're talking smart universities, and how can we keep pace with the transformation that is happening worldwide today, bearing into consideration, as you were talking, lessons taught from different countries who have moved forward in that respect? You mentioned Singapore, the States as well.
So for Singapore and for South Korea and United States, so in the US, they had a problem a few years ago, and they started to approach their problems. They didn't say that we are the superpower and we shouldn't care about that. No, they started doing that. And I think that Egypt, yes, is a strategic country in the Middle East, and we do have certain problems, and we are trying to handle such problems as well. But let me just give you one example here, because for South Korea, for what happened there, because of their education system, there was the result of creative educational ways over there. It was one word that is overwhelming the world today, that is Samsung. So South Korea nowadays is just coming up by Samsung. It's because of their education. And look on the other hand in the US, because of the education, another company that came up at that time, that is Apple. And now look at the competitiveness that you can see. Now, from such experience, Apple and Samsung, two major companies, both of them are competing together. I need to connect that with education. And they are doing that because of the educational system they have that can produce a sense of creativity, and that can, at the end, be reflected on the smart devices and other stuff like that. So I think that what we really need is, we would like to make people more oriented towards what's going on. We have to, I was, Tagreed, I was just reading a book published by, and written by Dr. Taha Hussein, that was in the 20s of the last century. The book was entitled مستقبل الثقافة في مصر, the future of culture in Egypt. When I read the book, I found that it talks about what's happening nowadays. He was just talking about short-term objectives for enhancing education and long-term objectives. So for the short-term objectives, we need to get the students to think critically for what's going on. We would like to make the students to practice more than one language. But we would like to emphasize the identity of the students as well. But doesn't mean that they should start learning foreign languages. But they should start, and I keep on saying that because this is very critical. And I think that this is the takeaway that I got from the book, that is emphasizing the Egyptian character, the Egyptian personality. And at the same time, to create a generation that is able to deal with the huge amount of information. And look today to what's happening online. So we would like to make even the students to be capable of dealing with the positives online. This is for the short term. Now, for the long term, I guess that we do have also certain objectives here. I think that the bottom line of a smart education is to make our society at the end to be a productive society rather than consuming society. We would like to make a transformation that's happening in the development process. So education is closely connected with culture, the cultural level, economic level, the social level. So it's not just education for education.
No, it's interconnected, correlevant with other dimensions. And taking from your words, Professor, and mentioning keeping your identity, which is really very important. And going smart does not mean that you would lose your identity.
Absolutely.
This is something. Another thing that came into my mind, the President's directives vis-a-vis building the Egyptian personality.
That's true.
When you build a personality today, going smart will definitely have a positive impact because it is going to prepare a cadre or a caliber that is capable of being in the labor market and that is capable to compete as well.
That's true. So this is a very critical point. There is no isolation between keeping your identity, your character, your personality, and going into the technological and the smart way for education. No contradiction, no discrepancy between both. It's actually they are going in harmony. And we are just keep on saying here that is, if we start by using education, the smart techniques in education, we should keep our identity by keeping the first, this is what Taha Hussein talked about. The first language should be Arabic when it comes to the early stage of education. He was just drawing our attention to something that's quite a bit important as well, that is how to create a generation of genuine scholars that are competitive, not just inside Egypt, but outside in different parts. And I'm very confident that Egyptians can do that. If you travel abroad, and as you have seen before, you can find different Egyptian personalities that they are contributing in different institutions, academic institutions, educational circles. What does that mean? It means that the roots that you have is applicable to any kind of a change, and it's applicable for any kind of development. I would like also to have that sense to open a channel for the intellectual capabilities for the youth, for the youngsters, because in this way, we're going to have a direct contact between the decision makers from one hand and those educators who are involved in education on the other hand.
And this is happening at the World Youth Forum.
That's true.
The different youth forums that are there under the auspices of His Excellency the President, where we could see this sense of a link between the decision makers and the youth, and even the youth themselves, they speak their mind before the President without any barriers. Let's take Nayera Nabil, researcher at Alexandria University. The youth forums were held in different Egyptian governorates. Nayera, we're talking smart tonight. We're talking about smart universities. How far is this transformation going to be a plus for Egypt? We've started with the new administrative capital, and the President had announced the year 2019 as a year dedicated for education. Nayera, good day.
Hello, Ms. Tagreed. Hello, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you for inviting me to join you today on the daily debate over this phone call. And for sure, smart learning is a step forward towards production, as Dr. Ahmed has said just now. And from my experience, in order to reach this development in education, we have to move to reach digitalization and non-formal education methods, and this can happen also by applying this digitalization in schools first, and in universities for sure, but to have this new generation to get prepared to this digitalization in schools through helping youngsters watch videos or songs, or having this new system of tablets, which is already applied right now, as I have read in some news websites. I also see that engaging self-learning is a must. Using the internet, to prepare for different activities for the classroom. You know for sure, Mrs. Tagreed, that we are having this memorizing issue. And to give up on this, we have to give up on this. and to start moving towards creativity through non-formal learning in education. I had an experience, for example, to teach English in a foreign country, and in this experience, I saw that the children are able to express themselves through different activities. For example, to have a handicraft, to be able to do it, and at the same time, to say how did they did it and who helped them, and the different materials used, for example, for children from 4 to 10 years old, and other children also can say their experiences or have different presentations through using the internet. So I think that encouraging non-formal learning as well is essential, and informal learning among students through having different groups, for example, and help them to learn together outside the classroom is also very important. This is from my experience. I think that this will encourage students to learn by themselves, and then to reflect on their education, and this will make it so much easy to have this digitalization in the universities of Egypt, to have smart education. And also, there's another experience that I have to be a facilitator in a program called the Connect program, where there were different university students having this kind of debate about different issues, and it was fantastic to see them connected all through the internet and taking that time to listen to each other, and at the same time to go back to the debate and say their opinions and learn from each other, which I really hope that this will happen one day in Egypt.
Definitely it will, with Going Smart. I thank you so much, Nayera Nabil, researcher at Alexandria University. Nayera talked, Professor, about more than one point. She talked about bringing creativity out of the students. She talked about also some sort of visual trends that would help them do the job, like handicrafts and more, and said that students used to talk with pride and with self-confidence about their achievements. And this is also a psychological aspect, which is very important. How to make them quite confident. How can they face the audience and express themselves?
It does. As a matter of fact, as you can see, she also spotted certain lights on another interesting part. I heard Nayera talking about that, the self-learning style as well. This is quite a bit important. I know a few students nowadays, they told me, look, Dr. Ahmed, we acquired the second language and the third language, and you know how did they do that? They just go on YouTube and they watch videos. And by using a technological way, they started to develop linguistic skills in order to acquire second and third languages. This is the bottom line. And so,
working on themselves.
Absolutely right. You bet. I mean, so if you just move from the traditional way of learning, this is one of the positives of smart education as well. So we would like to move from the traditional rote learning style. We would like to move another way. Right. So we would like to move on to something that could help the students to get any accessibility for the information they want, and to connect themselves with different information resources that can help them, and to have a direct contact. We were talking about the isolation and the negatives and the positives. So they will be also in a direct contact with the professors in this way. I mean, so this advantage could really be very helpful when it comes to the transformational way of a smart education. I know it's challenging, I know that. I know sometimes it takes a long time, but it will happen at the end because, as I mentioned before, that there is no other alternative that we have ahead. When we talk, and there is something very interesting as well in smart education, that is transparency. I mean, everything is clear, everything is determined, everything is accurate, so there is nothing for manipulation, which is something that we probably sometimes suffered in the past. So when you use the smart education, nothing will be coming up in this way. So you have the transparency, you have the competitiveness as well. The interesting, right. And the interesting part here about that style of education, it is called decentralization. That means that not everything will be centralized into or towards certain places. No, it's going to be open places, and students will feel like they will have different access for information. But there is something that is very important, I guess, that also they play an important role. It is the role of the families. They should play an important role when it comes to increasing the awareness as well, and to guide the students towards that track, because that will be helpful at the end for them.
Definitely, and we will talk after a short break more about the parents' role in that, in creating this sense of awareness and in preparing the students for going smart and encouraging them also to go ahead for the smart transformational education. We are building the Egyptian citizen, and education is definitely the core. And Egyptians are known for their persistence on working for the better. When we do have something in mind, we definitely achieve it. As we say, هي دي مصر اللي بجد. This is Egypt and the Egyptians. And they are really adamant to make our country better. Let's watch.
مصر بجد اللي ما شافهاش يبقى حياته لسه ما عاشهاش. مصر الحارة جران العمارة قضيت سلم طول الليل. مصر الشاب الجدع الشاب بنتي بترسم بلدوسة. مصر الزحمة مليانة رحمة ايد بتعدي وايد بتشيل. وكوباية شاي عالرايق تفوقك لو متضايق. ونكتة تضحكك من القلب. وحمص الشام عالكورنيش. وخد طبق فول ورغيف عيش. وقعد وغمس هنا على جنب راضيين نعيش فيها عالقد. وهي دي مصر اللي بجد. في مصر تروح في أي مكان. في ناس مختلفة في الألوان. لكن نفس الطباع بالظبط. وفي التتعي بقى قاعد شيخ. في تشقيق وشه تقرا تاريخ. بيخبط جوه قلبك خبط. بنصلي جمعة وقداس حد. وهي دي مصر اللي بجد. تشوف عامل تشوف فلاح. وجندي إيمان وأغلى سلاح. ودايما تلقى بينهم ربط. فانيلا بيضاء أو حمراء. معادي مرج أو غمرة. بيتقابلوا في نفس الخط. جيش شعب شرطة ويد في يد. وهي دي مصر اللي بجد. في ناس علشان نعيش في أمان. بيقفوا في وش أي جبال. وياخدوا الضرب قبلينا. ورغم إن الوجع بيزيد هنكمل حلم كل شهيد. كأنه لسه وسطينا. جيش مصر هنا واقف 100 سنة. وهي دي مصر اللي بجد.
So we continue our discussion talking about smart education, smart universities. We have with us Dr. Mohammed Amer, PhD candidate. Dr. Amer, thank you so much for joining Nile TV tonight. And we're talking with Professor Ahmad about smart university, the smart campus. Does it require smart infrastructure? And what could be the valuable tools that would help us go smart? Do you think going smart is beneficial, Doctor?
Yeah. Good evening to you, and good evening to my dear friend, Dr. Ahmad Abdel Tawwab.
Thank you.
I would like to add that it's not a secret that a good education has the power to change our lives. What is new is the demand for that change. What do we need for such a change? We can see that governments, our government is investing more than ever before on educating their citizens under the supervision of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. I think he is eager to educate the Egyptian people, and it's eager for the people themselves to compete in a global workforce. We can also add that there is a growing global middle class and spending more of its own money on educating their families. And you can see that our Ministry of Education is spending more than ever on education. In addition to that, employers are looking for a new sort of education, someone who has the skills to flourish in the 21st century. Combined with technologies that continue to develop at the breakneck speed, I think the result is a world that has a want and the means to learn at scale. We can also say that there is so much to be done in this regard. We have adults that need to be educated. We have children to be educated. But focusing on the faculty system, on the university educational system, I think there is a global challenge for such kind of education. It's not just about providing access, but it's also ensuring progress of such education. At the world's leading learning company, we can help make a difference in Egypt by supporting His Excellency's plan to develop education, by supporting the ministry itself. The plan is not. I remember when I started thinking about this project brought by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Minister of Education. It's much more important to support and to provide steps to get upwards. And let me talk about more about the path onto such a plan. I remember my teachers, I remember my school, and I remember my subjects. The study and the fun itself we had and on this time, I never really hated school, and our kids never really had to hate schools. But I have seen many of my peers who hated going to schools, and nowadays we can see a lot of students who hate going to schools. We have friends who do not like the idea of studying. Some of those.
But this is improving, Doctor, through new technicalities. I thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Amer, PhD candidate, for joining us on the debate tonight, Professor. Dr. Amer talked about the labor market today and how employers are looking for the skills that are combined with technology. Linking the area of technology to going smart is very important. They are co-linked, they are co-relevant. And we were talking also before the beautiful song about the sense of awareness that the parents should instill in the students and prepare them to go smart.
Right. This is crucial point for the whole process now.
Yes.
Because if the family is not convinced about what's going on, then we are just, moving in a vicious circle. I think here that I think that we are responsible for increasing the awareness for the families. And when I just say the families, I mean the parents, I mean the father and the mother, and those who are responsible for pushing their kids to go in the technological path. I understand sometimes that there is a generation gap. So when I just, for example, when I talk to my grandfather, so I can see the gap, but it is, again, it's part and parcel of the whole process for development to set up a campaign for increasing the awareness for the families, inviting them to come and talk, showing them what's going on, pushing them in a direct experience to see the results at the end. And if you remember a few years ago, during the process of joining the universities, that's called in Arabic tanseep, at that time, they started to make it electronically, and we faced a lot of challenges at that time from the families. But look today, so everything is going electronically. Everyone who would like to join any Egyptian university, he or she has to apply electronically. This is a point. So I think that part of the smart education, it's more about the awareness, it's more about because Mohammed was talking about how to make the students to graduate on a competitive level.
Yes.
This is extremely important.
And with skills that are acceptable to the labor market.
Absolutely. So it doesn't make any sense, for example, if someone applying for the job and he cannot type on the computer or he doesn't have an email. It doesn't make any sense if you cannot market yourself online nowadays. I mean, and so the point here is that smart education can help the students to find better job opportunities. And this is what we are looking for. We are looking for finding different opportunities inside Egypt and outside Egypt that wouldn't happen if you are not technologically oriented. And I'm just talking about myself as an example, and I hate to talk about myself, but when I got the PhD from an Egyptian university here, then I got a teaching position in the US. And I have to say, and I have to admit that part of the whole process was because of technology. So I was searching online, and I found a vacancy, and I applied online, and I made the interview online. So everything went online at that time. So at the end, you get the job. And people sometimes, they were telling me, like, you have some connections with the people. No, that's not true. It's all about to increase your skills when it comes to technological education, and at the same time to build your capabilities, and at the same time you know what you're looking for. At the end you can get your targets.
Yes, in a minute to wrap up for the top stories, talking about scientific research and co-link with the smart education, because they are co-relevant. Definitely, and they have a positive reflection too. I
think so, yes. Absolutely, no question about that when it comes to the scientific research, because everything, even when it comes to science, is nowadays administered online. I mean, if you just go and would like to discover anything related to scientific explorations, it is based on the electronic ways, electronic systems. So I think that there is very, very strong, and even the multinational companies today, they are searching for scientific discoveries that wouldn't happen if we are not having that sense of being smart.
Thank you so much, Professor, for bringing the idea of being smart. And it all came in your article, and it was also reflected here on the show. I thank very much Professor Dr. Ahmad Abdel Tawwab Sharaf Eldin, Professor of Linguistics at Monofia University, for joining Nile TV and for this valuable interview. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. We talked about valuable information tonight concerning smart universities. Going smart is not a luxury, but it is a necessity today, so that we can transcend barriers and we would achieve a more compatible society for positive achievements in the future in the field of education. I'm Taghreed Hussein. Many thanks for watching.